The lengths that people will go to stay relevant is shocking. You'd be surprised at what people try to do to make sure that their name is still on the headlines and still just, in people's minds. Even if their name occupies people's brains for maybe a second a day, they're winning, they're happy, and their unending thirst for relevancy is quenched for a little bit. Now, I know what you're wondering. Well, why are you talking about this? And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I saw one of the craziest headlines of all time that I originally thought was coming from a parody account. I saw this headline from Discussing Film, the popular page, news page for movies and all that, pop culture stuff. And I thought it was the fake one. There was like it's like Discussing Fish or something like that, which is like the parody one, which I thought it was this, but no. I looked at the at and the name, and it was actually the correct account. So the post that I saw here was apparently Jonathan Majors will star in a new action film for the Daily Wire, which Ben Shapiro is set to produce. And it's sourced out the Deadline. And so I went to the Deadline article because I was absolutely so unbelievably confused on what the hell this article was trying to say, or this headline was trying to say. Because what do you mean Jonathan Majors, who was formerly like a Hollywood celebrity, is now acting for the Daily Wire? Now, obviously, I did see someone on Twitter tweet out that this is supposed to be the anti-woke sinners, which was kind of interesting because they cited the Deadline article and I couldn't see anything about it. I tried to keyword search anti-woke and like woke and sinners and I couldn't find it. But I did kind of find apparently the what the plot of the show is supposed to be. So we have the title, plot, and other casts are under wraps for now, but the story is said to be in the veins of 80s and 90s action movies Red Dawn and Toy Soldiers, which were both about groups of teenage boys who had to band together to defeat invading enemies. Now, using my experience in the industry and my knowledge of the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, and all those people, if I had to guess about what the invading enemies are going to be, I'm going to shoot out a guess and say it's minorities of some sort, of some kind. Now, if we were going to go in the vein of anti woke sinners, Sinners is not a movie I've seen. I've heard it's really good, but from I get the plot of it, it's like one of the big things is that one of the main evil villains in the entire movie are the KKK, and so if we're doing an anti woke Sinners, are we taking the KKK as good angle, which would be kind of I feel like that's just would be a shocking claim to make, but they wouldn't shy away from it. The Daily Wire, they are really good at having stupid opinions. But like once again, if you just like look at it, if we think together, do a brain college of who we think the invading enemies are going to be, it's got to be some sort of minorities. And now, obviously the Daily Wire, I don't think they're going to be doing a good enough job to make it like any sort of symbolism or thematic like things that will hide or bury the lead of it being minorities. I think they're going to make it very obvious about, some sort of minorities who's banning that these I guess group of teenage boys that have the band together. But they're gonna fight off the woke, the gays. They're gonna get them away with their pickaxes or some shit. I don't know. Obviously, like Jonathan Majors, he was originally supposed to be Kang the Conqueror, I think, in the Marvel movies, and then he threw that all away when he was charged with domestic violence and I think like domestic abuse on his girlfriend. And yeah, the domestic violence case, he was convicted of misdemeanor assault and harassment charges. I think he had to do like a year long of like domestic violence awareness like classes or whatever. He got off. He decided I have this really good career going ahead of me. I have this really good career going for me. What if I just throw it all away by assaulting my girlfriend? And so that's what happened. And now he kind of just fell out of grace, fell out of like a bunch of movies, and now he's relegated to doing the Daily Wire, which in case you're wondering what other wonderful movies the Daily Wire has put out, let's take a look. So we pull up the Daily Wire on the IMDb. They've carried some wonderful movies such as Lady Ballers. Now, the interesting thing about Lady Ballers is this is a very transphobic show. But the really funny thing about this is how badly they tried to like make it or like try to prove it and make it a documentary in real life. And then everything fell apart and it was just, I don't even know, one of like the shittiest movies of all time. The idea with Lady Ballers is that they were going to try to find like real life examples of like people claim that they're trans just to like, play sports in women's leagues and dominate them. And then they legitimately could not find it in any way, any examples of this happening. And then they said, what if we do it ourselves? And then they realized that the requirements that it would take for someone to, who was born a male to participate in these women's leagues was actually way too high. They had like hormone limits that you had to like be under, and so they were decided themselves that it was not worth the actual risk and bodily harm that they would do just to say that they're just to even attempt to like prove their point that people, I guess men were pretending to be women and playing in women's sports when they just like proved themselves wrong twice in the conception of this movie, and then they made like one of the shittiest like movies of all time. I don't even know what the hell it was about, but it was just a bunch of them like cross dressing and like acting like this is a real life thing that happened, and just them looking like a bunch of idiots, and that's really all you need to know about it. I haven't even seen the movie, and I know too much about it. But you know, all these wonderful movies such as What Is a Woman by Matt Walsh, all these great ones. Oh, Dinner with Trump. That sounds like a really good movie. I should probably watch that. Hold on. What the fuck is this? Is this just like a one-on-one meal with him? Oh my god, it literally is just like a one-on-one date with Trump. I didn't even know this was a thing. What the hell is going on? One user review. Let's see what the person had to say about it. I couldn't stop watching 7 out of 10. Okay. They got really Eric Stone got sent to the brig with the reactions to this. But anyway, you know, stopping with getting sidetracked. You know, this is gonna be the first apparently feature film of the Daily Wire since 2023. You know, they're making they're making their big return to the big screen in another year or two with big star Jonathan Majors. So you can kind of see like how far Jonathan Majors' career has fallen if it's an actually true headline. And this is actually stuff that's happening, you know, them unreported with it. So I'm gonna say leaning towards it being an actual thing that's happening. But you know, he went from being in Marvel movies, one of the biggest franchises in the world right now, to beating his girlfriend and then doing Daily Wire, which once again we've established it as a top tier media company. But like, is it really surprising to see someone who like does an absolutely shitty thing just like kind of pivoting to this grift of right wing reactionary bullshit? No, that's kind of the most common trend of all time you ever see. It's something that you have to just like assume that when someone gets canceled, or not even canceled, legitimately did a crime. When someone does anything bad, like a crime or getting canceled, they're just gonna immediately pivot to this, and it doesn't even matter how good or bad the art that they're in it is. It just matters that they're getting attention and getting money from it, and that's really all they care about. And so, like, will I be waiting in advance for the anti woke sinners? Apparently, no. Will I watch the movie? Probably not. Will I be happy to see how much it fails? Absolutely. That's what I wanted to talk about. It was one of the most shocking headlines I'll see. Once again, thought it was parody at first. Checked the actual account that tweeted it and realized it was the actual account that talks about legitimate movie stuff and everything like that. And so it was kind of just like a harrowing moment, and it reminds you of just how low people can go in the attempt to make money and be relevant. And so in conclusion, don't be a loser and beat your girlfriend, I guess, and then pivot to right-wing reactionary content. That's all I got for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.